It's over to the producers. That's when it all becomes real. We've heard about the theory of that funding, and there are humans, not superhumans, who can actually...
Mostly Italians here now.
Mostly Italians. We're in Europe already, yes. Who have cracked it, and it's difficult, but it's possible to do. So could you share your tips on how to crack this funding, perhaps starting with describing the projects that have been through the funding, because through that you can already hear that you need to bring to us the right kind of project. And the key is the international potential. We're after those projects that promise that they will leave their country of origin and travel in other countries. So maybe starting...
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Giovanna Stopponi, and I'm producer at Native Voice Films. And I've been extremely lucky to have been granted 2 grants, one for the Love Hotel web experience. So this is an interactive, non-linear narrative as a stand-out production that stemmed out of the Love Hotel documentary feature that I was also producing. So that's one project. And the other one, which is still ongoing, is Nastigal, The Many Lives of Funk Queen Betty Davis, about, again, a documentary feature about the life and the music of Betty Davis, ex-wife of Miles Davis, huge influence in the funk music scene in the 70s. Who disappeared, and we managed to find her. So we are now tell you the story, her story, personal story. So I approached in media with fear, and I think since then I came across a lot of producers who don't even think of applying just because they're scared of the whole process. It's the process. But actually, I found that this can be very daunting. But actually, it is as long as you have the quality and the determination to go through the first hurdle to actually understand even the terminology of the application is so feasible. And I'm so grateful because I could not have done these films without the media grant. Definitely, because that gave us the input to go deep into the development, and especially with the web experience, because it's so heavily based on researching and developing the architect of the interactive experience. That fund was extremely important because the production was very quick afterwards. So the media fund was mainly to fund the research and development of the technology that went into enable us to experience the Love Hotel in an interactive way. So that was ad hoc. I mean, it became like crucial.
I think we're probably not explicit enough in our guidelines and literature, but this support is still available through single project scheme. You can still bring projects for digital platforms. They can be interactive projects. So I feel that we don't shout loudly enough that there's still support. There used to be a separate scheme for this, right? Before 2014. But you can still bring interactive documentaries to us. Moving over to Paula.
So we had, let's see, is it good? So we had support from the single slate as well for a film called Uncle Howard. It took 4 years to make. So the development was long, each project is different, I guess. And we had the project this year launched in Sundance and at the Berlinale. The film is a documentary about a filmmaker who died in the 80s of AIDS, and his nephew, the director of the film, finds his work and along the way finds who his uncle was. His uncle was a filmmaker, but finding more about him, let's say in a nutshell. Again, I think is daunting to look at the applications. But one thing, I always say this thing, which is, I think documentaries give you an invoice at the end, and fiction films give you the invoice at the beginning. Because a lot of people just grab a camera and start doing docs, and then they find themselves, in the edit room where you can't just keep doing it on your own. But with the media grant, I realized that actually that thing, which I always kind of complain about, was reversed. Because when you actually have funds to develop a documentary project, the way you can deepen the film and actually program your whole production becomes a different story. You're not starting your process with already everything around your neck and just chasing ice, literally. You have time to structure, to think, you have time to really strategize who your partners are going to be, how you're going to do it. Because also, I think funds are just a tiny, tiny part of what we need to make films. Like someone just said before, oh, unfortunately, we don't have any more one single funding source and all that. And I think that's actually great, because the more partners we have, the more people help us to pull films along the way. Filmmaking, when the film finishes, when the film wraps, is just half the way these days. Like, independent filmmaking includes producers really getting deep into entrepreneurial ways to show the films, to go out there. So it's not really how you get the money to make the film, it's how you become that you turn all that weight into a lighter weight, because other people are going to champion your film as well, other institutions. So I would say that the funding that we got from media, the money itself, was just a tiny thing, a big thing, and I'm very grateful, don't get me wrong, but it was just a tiny part of what the film really needed, but a very important part, because the moment an institution believes in you, another institution will believe in you, another broadcaster, so things are going to pile up, because that's how we make films, as a collective work and a collective experience. So that for me was very, very important, to have the support of such an important institution as well.
Yeah. We all know, we won't be pretending that it is a tough money to get, because success rates are not terribly encouraging. So perhaps we could reflect a little bit on what is this ideal moment to come to media? Because we say, come to us anytime during development process. Can you say where you were? What did you have in terms of artistic material and in terms of partners? What struck this golden moment that you actually got through the door?
Yes, I mean, for us as a company, we always put a lot of our own effort into making sure that the creative narrative, the director's vision, some filming is already in place, because that will strengthen the filmmakers in their journey. And when you have something that is visual, or if not visual, is researched and accessed in terms of access to the character, I always spend a lot of time with the director to have something that we can show and that we believe in, we can take forward. So I already had, the creative vision, the treatment, lots of research at the back, and then, of course, the rights in terms of, for example, for Betty Davis, Fnastigal, we spent 2 years before to access her. She had a very troubled life, and I must say that the process of the filming with her actually opened her up and as a personal journey. So I arrived at the media at a point where I already made a plan to go out, because I had a solid creative package that I could propose to various supporters. So while I was talking to media, I was also planning a co-production with France. So I partnered with Bon Pioche, who's an Oscar-winning French company, and they believed in the director, they believed in the company, they could see the potential of the film, and we started a discussion together, and then that's how we, excuse me, how we, my Italian way of talking with my hands. Yeah, we started a journey, and media was one element of going out there and finding supporters. Crucial help, of course, but we already had in place a strategy on how to bring in other sources of finances, and not relying exclusively on public subsidies either. For example, in my film, I always tend to go and different ways of supporting the film. First of all, my own investment, if possible, because that is crucial to bring a creative vision that is proposable and is a good stage of development, a good stage of research. And then going out and see maybe, okay, public subsidies, angel investors, although little bit, because then you will find that when you sell your film, then you have to repay this investor. But diversifying, finding other ways, for example, pre-sales, or for example, with one of my early film, The Bengali Detective, again a documentary feature, we were extremely lucky to fund the production, going into production with a mobile online platform called Bubblegum, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, for which we sold exclusive content stemming out of the film. In other words, while we were filming the documentary, we were in the process of filming documentary, we would then take the time to create, say, backstage moments, portraits of the characters, portraits of the staff, of the crew, and that would become a journey that built up an audience in the running up to the launch release of the documentary. That sale was an exclusive sale, enabled us to go straight into development, into the filming. So diversifying your funding, don't just look at the institutional foundation, although those are very important. But for me, my own experience is that you need to take risks, first of all, yourself. And when you take risk and you go to a fund, or say a broadcaster, your chances to get a higher sale is much stronger, because you have taken most of the risk from the beginning. You have spent your own money, you have spent your own time. The result is that what you bring to them, it increases the value of your product, just to say marketing terms. But that's my approach.
Yeah, that's how it works. And how was it with you? What stage were you at with the project? What elements did you bring in?
So in our case, so the director had done a previous film with us, a fiction, that we did for an online, we did it for the iPad. It was like the first film done just for the iPad. So after that, because this film was going to take a different approach, I insisted that he went to Talent Campus first. So
one of our training initiatives.
Talent Campus in the Berlinale. Not only because of the networking feeling and the feeling of support. The filmmaker is American, living in the UK, so he needed a bit of a base here. But also because those relationships started to be crucial. In fact, our European premiere, our international premiere was in at the Berlinale. So we went to Berlinale, and we were selected for the talent project market, and they generally don't select documentaries. So it was one, I think the previous one had been 3 years before. So that was super encouraging. And that allowed us to meet the different partners and to really start thinking about the project more. The story was still a bit out there because we needed to find many things: archive, digitization. Like, the project was going to be lengthy, and we knew it. But for me, the word is strategy. Like you really need to strategize. And also when we were thinking, okay, how can we finance this? You know, the idea of a finance plan was there, and there were many versions of the finance plan. Like people say, how am I gonna know where do I get the money? It's a plan. You have to show that you can plan it, and the plan can be plan A, B, C, D. So that gave us time and space to start strategizing and creating. So we went to media when we already knew where the archive was, when we already knew a bit of the story, when we already knew a bit of the plan, of the financing plan, but first and foremost, we had a overall strategy in place. The strategy changed and was fluid with time, and times changed also because timing got very different from what we expected. But some of the sprouts of how everything was going to flourish were there. We didn't go to media with something that didn't have any form, and we just say, oh, we want to do this, give us the money, so we start. And when
partners, was there a promise of working with other people?
At the time, we had a potential German co-producer on board. Yeah. Then, with time, that co-producer, we decided to part ways. And that was actually good, because if we had stayed at German co-production, as a German co-production, UK-German, we could have not done Sundance and Berlinale. So things happen for certain reasons. So things did change along the way. But at the time, there was a German co-producer on board who had already started talking to broadcasters, and we had interest from ZDF, and we had a few things in place, not fully in place, but and letters of interest from sales agents and things like that. Yeah.
So I'd like to thank you both. So you're hearing this theme of international market here, that in whichever way the producer needs to make a case that they're working on material on a project that will travel across borders. And the sort of most obvious way of doing it is in a co-production. If you find partners to join you on that journey and look after the film in their own country, obviously it will increase the international potential. Yes. But I don't want to give you an impression that co-production is a must. It is not a rigid requirement, but it's always good to mention it, that we might structure it as a co-production because it makes sense. It does have to make sense, though.
Yes, definitely.
So,
yeah. No, it does have to make sense and research, because co-production is a wonderful way to access resources outside of the UK. And I know that many British producers are scared also of co-production. It's not in the culture of going into co-production. I think this is changing, and it's a wonderful way of collaborating on a project. It's also very hard work. Yes. So you need to...
Makes it more complex as well.
It's very complex, from budgeting to reporting to how you spend the finances, where you spend the finances, how you apply for tax credit at the end. So you need to plan it very much from the beginning, and knowing a little bit what you can access after the co-production and how you're going to make it happen after, because the co-production itself can work really well, but then obviously if you choose A, you can only go down one way. If you choose B, you can go down other ways. So, you know.
Playing the scenarios of the co-productions is very important, because sometimes, I don't know, I get conversations, people say, so we're going to do this co-production between the US, Mexico, we're going to do post-production in New Zealand, and then we just UK film. And it doesn't really work like that, because each country has a nationality, each country has rules and criteria, so you have to have 20% of this and 10% of that, and if you have more than 30. And for some first and second time producers, that's still a bit of a secret mystery. It's like, you can't do a co-production with the US. You can, but it's not official, because they don't have a treaty with any country in the world. They just work around equity. And it's like, but if the US enters, then it's burning your European bit, because you have to go through the cultural test. So all those things, make sure you read the treaties, you understand them, and then you play them in scenarios moving forward with the money that you're using in development. For example, if you get the money for development, it's like, how you're going to use it, how you're going to co-finance it, where you're going to spend those funds, and creating the whole timeline of your film in a way, like playing the scenario, right?
And you can learn all that complexity hard way on your own, or as per the previous session, you can go on one of the training courses,
Yes,
or
exactly.
join EDN
Totally.
and do it an easy way, or phone Francesca and I up in London. Can we have questions, or should we go and eat? Let's have 3 questions, better be quick, primarily to the producers.
2, 1, 2. And the lady there.
No, we wait for the mic.
Okay, thank you very much for organizing such an informative event.
Thank you.
What I want to ask is the criteria for funding is one need to be registered as a legality before you can apply. That legality, is it a company limited, was a production company or sole trader or self-employed, can it be registered, but at the same time that, because there are 3 ways of registering a company.
The company needs to be registered in Companies House. Primarily, the companies are LTD companies, but we would also accept LLP, limited something liability partnership.
Right, okay.
That's quite simple.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next question, please.
The lady there.
Yeah.
Hi, Agnieszka, nice to see you again. I suppose it's a bit more about the content, actually. If, for example, you're doing a documentary and you're having 2 countries, it might be sometimes the topic that you're looking at may be more advanced in one country than in the other. Like, for example, I'm interested in looking at dementia type of thing. Does that mean, for example, that say, for example, you produce something, will it be looked on those type of criteria about the kind of standard in one country and the standard in another? Does that make sense?
Well, it's an interesting question, I think, for producers, because if you intend your project for international market, and you have a subject matter that you think is very resonant here, how do you know that it's equally resonant elsewhere, and therefore there are audiences for it, and how do you navigate that differing appetite? Yes, is that the question?
Yeah, got it. I think that the best way is, well, first of all, research a bit on your own. But then if you see something popping up in specific countries, then try to focus your networking with producers from those areas. Because your co-producer, your producer over there is not just there to get you some funds. It's there to also be your voice and your eyes and your ears in that territory as well. So if you're going to get funding or you're going to get audience exposure in that territory, the local producers will be very good at advising or finding the right producers who you feel that are resonant with your theme. In our case, we were here, but our story was very heavily related to New York City. So we had to find a way to anchor it here. We did have parts of the story that were here, but so one way we worked a lot with UK bands to do our soundtrack. So when we do our release of the film here, we're thinking about creating events where the film can be seen and the bands can come and play. So that's our UK part, and that may not be the way we're going to release the film in the US, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything to add on
Same.
this?
I mean, in your specific case, mental health is universal. Universal. I mean, and of course, there are maybe different responses culturally from different countries, but I don't want to say what has been said because this is what applies. You do your research, but target your audience in different countries in different way with different event or different outputs to complement the release or even to aid the distribution. So before the film comes out, you raise awareness of the issue with different different events or different outputs that you can create. So also the media fund allows you to have a little bit of money to do social media, marketing, distribution. So for example, for Nastigal, this was very important because I wanted to build an audience before the film comes out, and because it's about music as well as about mental health and social issues like poverty that affect Betty very heavily. I wanted to build an audience, and so I targeted audiences through social media, using social media tools, and it proved very successful to build a constituency for the film.
Thank you very much. Any more before lunch? Okay, last question, and then we're off.
Hello. Often the best way to convey your intentions or ideas for a project is to actually shoot something, shoot a taster, or sometimes, film a little bit with your contributor for your documentary. It seems like it's a written application. It doesn't seem like any visuals are required. Is it worthwhile shooting a taster? And if you do, does it conflict with the principal photography deadline?
We actually, the media application allows you, as far as I understand, still maybe if it changed, let me know, allows you actually to have some of the development money devoted to creating a taster or trailer, mood way, whatever you want. And we actually use some of that money to, it helped us shape the ideas of the film, it helped us get deeper into the story, and it helped us even test some of the archive. So in our case, you do it after you get your development sometimes. I mean, if you're doing it for access of your subjects, like you're filming a subject every day because you're getting acquainted and they live close by, yeah, you can keep doing it, but then media could help you hire the editor that's gonna shape that trailer in a good form to take it to markets, for example.
Yeah, same.
So
So
it's
important to have visuals.
Yeah, some people would come to media already with something visual, but likewise, this money is developed. Oh, sorry, becoming Italian. This money is also supposed to make it possible for people who haven't got that far yet. So some of the costs can be used for that.